Assalamu alaikum. Barkanmu da sake saduwa wannan shirin namu na Jasiri. Good morning, everyone.
Wow.
And I can see the ladies staring at me, but then we know that the week is... Lala and Cassie.
She's so gorgeous. Like, continue. Like, okay. So speak the Hausa to me, my baby.
Ina kwanan ku kun tashi lafiya?
Lafiya. Lafiya.
Oh, I'm glad you guys heard that one. All right, so the week is flying by, and Thursday is that sweet spot where we're close enough to the weekend to taste it, but we're still locked in for the work, the hustle, and of course the big conversations. Now, from politics to culture, from the economy to social issues, if it matters to you, then we are definitely talking about it. Did you know that there was a day, set aside to highlight conversations about sexual health around the world? Well, today, on September 9th, is recognized globally as the day to raise awareness about the importance of sexual health to overall health and well-being. The World Health Organization and the UN Special Program in Human Reproduction notes that sexual health and well-being are integral to fostering healthy societies in which all people experience their sexuality positively and with dignity. So today, we're looking at this year's theme from a Nigerian perspective. And our guest is definitely standing by. But first,
I'm gaping, I'm gobsmacked. How beautiful. Dashing a pen. This is so beautiful. Honestly, I don't know if it's only me. I just feel Nigerian culture is so rich, it's so vibrant, it's so alive. And I can literally just say, yarinya. Anyway, but first, let's talk about this headline that's stirring reactions for Africa's largest producing country, Nigeria. The federal government has said that from January 2026, there'll be a 5% surcharge on all fossil fuel sales. That's petrol and diesel, whether imported or refined here. This is part of its new tax law. Now, according to the new tax regulation, the surcharge won't affect kerosene, cooking gas, or CNG, but renewables. It will only affect fossil fuel, and according to the stipulation of the Act, it will be collected at every point of sale. The move is part of efforts to reduce Nigeria's dependence on oil and encourage a shift to cleaner energy sources. In fact, after subsidy removal and electricity tariff hikes, adoption of solar energy has grown. Nigeria is now ranked 4th in Africa for solar adoption, with 63.5 megawatts peak of new capacity added in 2024. That is bringing the total to 385.7 megawatts peak.
Well, supporters say the surcharge is similar to a carbon tax used in countries like Sweden to cut emissions and fund clean energy projects. The government, however, says the revenue could also support climate resilience initiatives. But there are concerns. The surcharge is the same for everyone, regardless of income level, which many see as unfair in a country where millions rely on petrol for transport and for power. There's another major issue, which is transparency. Unlike countries such as Sweden and the British Columbia, where carbon tax revenues are returned to citizens through rebates or tax cuts, the government hasn't yet shared a clear plan on how the funds will be used. So, while this could help Nigeria move away from oil dependence and grow clean energy, questions remain about fairness and accountability. So, this is one of the stories we'll keep an eye on, as it is set to begin in January of 2026. I don't even think we're ready for this. I think we like how it sounds. I think we like how it's seen to play out in other countries.
And Catherine, we missed you.
You had to bring that up.
Yeah, I had to, because the topic is quite heavy, and I know she was just going in.
It is heavy. Thank you, Mama. I missed you, ladies.
Yes, continue. Honestly, I just feel that, one, I appreciate the fact that we're being told way ahead of time. It gives everybody time to adjust mentally. There's a difference between adjusting mentally and adjusting economically or adjusting your pocket. It's a different thing. We're projecting something, we're expecting it though, but when it starts to hit you, And you know Nigeria doesn't hit you in one place. When this is happening, other things are going to be happening simultaneously. And that is what will now put everything together and actually make the citizens feel like they're drowning.
I know.
When did they remove subsidy? We're still adjusting to the hardship that the removal, even though I know it has a lot of merit and I would say I'm pro it, I know that it's taking a lot of adjusting to. So now we're entering into another level. It's like, okay, we're going on gear 6, but take gear 3 first. That one hit us. We're trying to settle into it, accommodate it. Now they are really focusing on taxation.
I really don't like it when, you know, people, especially our leaders, compare our country with other countries. How can you compare Nigeria with Sweden that is way ahead of us, that's super developed? Do you understand? Okay, so when you go to Sweden, they have other subsidies in place that, and their citizens are paid really, really well. You know, when it comes to health, education, you cannot compare it to Nigeria. And you come here, why not, you know, bring up policies that are unique to the country? Why do you have to keep comparing us with developed countries?
I think it's laziness on our part because every country is unique. Nigeria is definitely one of the most unique, or if there's a word like uniquest countries in the world. It is just who we are and how we are. Our economy is not the same as the ones everywhere. It works fantastically well in Sweden and other countries. Why? Because like you said, there are things in place, pushings for this. I understand the need for tax drive. Guy, I will ask the question that probably a lot of Nigerians on the streets will be asking, is this what we need now? Is this the problem that we're facing? And if you say yes, what are the cushions in place? What are the things that you have put in place to help the ordinary Nigerian? Exactly. We always say Nigerians adapt. There will be a time where we will no longer work. As it is now, people are still not able to eat 3 square meals.
How much are they being paid?
How much are they being paid?
Some are being paid 30,000 naira per month. And, you know, recently, the subsidy on CNG has been removed. So now people are even paying more for CNG, taxis, and buses and everything.
Do you know that once the transportation costs increased, it would never go down? Nigeria is a country where I know that even if everything reverts to normal, it's going to still stay the way it is. There are no cushions for the people.
No.
It's not like, oh, you're increasing, we're getting tax here and food is getting subsidized. You know, just something to keep the people living. It's really difficult. And I don't know if they continue on this trajectory, what is going to happen to the majority of Nigerians? Because all these things that they're putting in place is going to still spill over to somewhere.
Have you, before we go to the reactions, have you seen people, you know, back then, people would, you know, take a bus to their bus stop and everything.
People walk now. They walk halfway.
You see them in their office attire, walking in their suits. They remove their shoes, they have their slippers in other bags, and walk.
So that they can at least, you know, try to reduce the cost of transportation. So many of them. Now, you not even see people that have their own cars, park it at home, and just enter transport to be able to ease the cost of it or for themselves. That some of them drive their cars only a weekend.
What about car spare parts? You know, when the car spoils, how do you fix that?
Do you don't talk about it, because when I look at my car and you see it states, sometimes you're like, oh God, what do we do? But it's so good that we talk about these things. But for them to know that everybody is feeling the pinch somewhere, no matter how balanced, no matter how the kind of earner you are on the income ladder, it's still hitting you somewhere. Absolutely. But anyway, we have our own thoughts on it and we've shared it. But let's see what the reactions are.
Hi, oh la la. Okay, now this is a long one.
Yeah.
Peter Obi says, when will Nigerians truly breathe? A timely and relevant question, as a new 5% tax on all refund fossil fuel sales, including petrol and diesel, has just been announced by the FG. That means Nigerians will pay a 5% tax when buying their everyday fuel or diesel at a time when millions can hardly afford the cost of transportation. Mr. President just yesterday boasted that Nigeria has met its revenue target for the year. Yet, instead of easing hardship, the government imposes more burdens on Nigerians. Even the so-called alternative CNG has become unaffordable, rising from about 230 naira to 450, while the promised subsidies on CNGs have quietly vanished. If our revenues are truly, in quote, excessive, as claimed, should they not first be used to fund education, healthcare, and pulling Nigerians out of poverty? Why tax citizens who cannot even breathe anymore. And then, you know, it spills over to Elozona saying, now it seems even the air we breathe will soon be taxed. This administration has placed the masses in a chokehold, squeezing life out of the people instead of giving them room to breathe.
All right, we have this one from Niger Dentist, and it says taxation in itself is not the problem. Every serious nation thrives on it. But in Nigeria, the issue is trust. Citizens are already taxed to death with little to show, yet services remain broken. Without transparency, fiscal discipline, and visible impact, this is nothing but another organized extortion. Well, this next one from Nabuihe Okechi says, from subsidy removal to petrol, on petrol to 5% tax on petrol consumption gain. Again, is this like the case of VAT on commodities purchased in supermarkets? What happened to the other taxes that are together built into the final price of the product as sold by the marketers? Does it imply that the petrol must be multi-taxed before it gets to the final user? Let the government admit that they want to increase the price of petrol by January 2026.
End of discussion.
This 5% petrol tax is just another way of the government to squeeze a little money left in Nigerians' pockets. Forget their clean energy excuse. It's all about greed. Subsidy removal already broke us, and now this. People saying it will fund renewables are dreaming. It's just a line corrupt officers' pockets. It's just to line corrupt officers' pockets. Truth be told, this is a disaster for the masses. Truth be told, indeed.
I spend 55K on fuel for my generator monthly, and it could be more than that because we have regular light, so I use the generator less. But before the light became stable, I spent more than 100,000 in a month on fuel for generator alone. Now they want to add tax. I think everyone can relate to this one. No, this is wrong. Why do we have to go through all this difficulty? What is the goal for this? Better road, free healthcare, or more salary and benefits for the executive? Something has to give. You can't keep taking and taking. And
giving back.
The tweet before the last one. Nigerians have truly, it used to be more expensive when you buy fuel for your gen.
Yeah.
And because you were using it more often, now light has stabilized a bit, so you're not buying as much fuel, but you're paying electricity.
Other ways.
Exactly. So you're paying, meaning that your consumption has increased. So you're buying more light. And then when there's still no light in those few hours, you're just managing. It's
exhausting.
We know that, you know, in recent times, you know, fuel prices have been dropping. Dangote has been reducing, you know, the fuel prices. But
where is it dropping to?
No, it has been dropping. It has been reducing from 1,000 something you get to buy for 800
I think they're just
now.
playing for me.
So, but is it possible that, you know, they're seeing that the prices are reducing, so they feel since
which prices are
reducing, let's punish.
No.
Like, I think they're playing a yo-yo game. This week you would see 890 something. The next week you will see 900 and something. They just keep bouncing it up and down.
It's almost as if
it depends on what you wake up to.
It's almost as if in readiness or in preparation for this new
increase. Because whether they like it or not, once they put this money on it, is it not going to jump the price of goods?
It will. If you want to calculate it now, you know that, guys, we have to be prepared.
Honestly,
like Lolo says, mentally before we enter economically.
Yes. At least with
and then everything will increase.
4 months to prepare.
We have 4 months, and this is not the first shocker. They are just going to still throw a couple of more.
What about the insurance, building insurance?
The building insurance,
that rent increase and everything.
2026 is getting up to be a really fantastic
year.
And they still want us to
year.
vote them come 2027.
My sister, we are in Nigeria.
So what will then happen? Are we expected to see a reduction in fuel price because of elections in 2027 as a way to canvass for votes?
Well, I'm very anxious to see the new tactics that they're going to employ, because I think this next election coming is it's very, very key. I want to see what's going to happen, if the dynamics can truly change. But
I'm not hopeful.
It's fingers crossed kinds of situation. Anyway, we'll be going for a short break now. But when we come, we're going to be discussing sexuality in Nigeria. It has sexuality in Nigeria. The culture has its rules and human rights have their demands. But what happens when two of these issues collide? That's our big conversation today on Jasiri. We'll go on this break, but when we return, we're going to have psychologist and sex therapist Olawunmi Esan. She'll be joining us to unpack this rather bold conversation. Stay with us.
Today we're tackling a subject that's often whispered about, judged harshly, or ignored altogether: sexual justice. Let's be clear. Sexual justice isn't just about sex. It's about health, rights, dignity, and choice for every single person, without fear, without shame or stigma. Think about it. In 2025, people are still shamed for their choices. They're denied access to reproductive care or fed half-truths about their bodies. And if we can't talk about sexual health openly, and if we can't talk about rights, how can we ever guarantee justice, safety, or even pleasure for everyone? From bodily autonomy to reproductive choice, from access to accurate information to living free from stigma, sexual justice is a fight that cuts across gender, age, religion, and culture. The real question is, are we brave enough to have the conversation? And the answer is that here on Jasiri, we're not a carry last. We are brave enough. Our guest is a trained psychologist and sex therapist who specializes in helping individuals and couples improve intimacy and enjoy sexual pleasure, connection, and fulfillment. With over 16 years of study in psychology and sexuality, including a bachelor's and master's in psychology certifications in psychosexual therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and family systems engineering, and more than a decade of professional practice, she's the right person for this conversation. So join us as we welcome Olawunmi Esan to Jasiri. My sister. Wow.
Only her family engineering.
Welcome to the
I'm wondering, where is the school for the family?
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You know, while Kat was, introducing you and saying everything, the first thing I thought about was how we're going to just dig in, rip it out, and say it how we want to say it without, sounding too X-rated, right?
Absolutely.
So, today is World Sexual Health Day, and not so many people actually know about it. So let's talk about what this means for us in Africa, in Nigeria, because we know a lot of parents, our society has made it so that it is not said.
Absolutely.
It is a taboo, when you speak about sexual health or sexual, education. So talk to us. Do you think that the silence is protecting culture, or is it actually fueling harm?
So here's the thing. In Nigeria, we have a culture of shame around our sexuality. And even from a very young age, and I don't know if you can attest to it as you were growing up, I don't know how many of you were able to ask your parents about sex.
Did we even
Or what
talk about
sex
having
meant?
What would cross your mind
Never.
to sit with your parents and talk about such things?
Absolutely. And we forget that our sexuality is an integral part of our humanness. And when we don't teach children or people to navigate these things, it will be abused, whether we like it or not. And so the silence fosters abuse.
Yeah.
It fosters harmful practices. It fosters danger. It fosters ignorance. And if we then look at what happens when people then get married, it fosters a lot of sexual problems. And when you see couples who have sexual issues, if you see a couple who are getting by sexually, they'll tell you, yeah, it's okay, sex is not everything, but it's okay. But if you see a couple who have sexual issues, it has a ripple effect on every aspect of their relationship. And so it contributes to overall marital dissatisfaction. So that silence is not helping us.
I was just looking and watching and just listening to Dr. Esan talk. I want to lay a bit on Dashan's question and focus basically on women. Because it just seems like for everything they expect women to take the lead or responsibility. In many instances when we talk about sex, there are many ways that men approve of it. or think about it or expect women to behave in a certain... It's as if women are the ones to behave well.
Yeah.
They are the ones to give it. They are the ones to receive it. They are the ones to determine what it should be like. Let's talk about women and sex and sexuality. Somehow it comes across like a dirty conversation. Because I remember that a lot of people, women or men, they are afraid of talking about these things hard. Why does it continue to be like that? Because even in the office, I would talk about sexual issues or topics among grown men. And you see everybody slinker away, look away, and I'll say...
Be uncomfortable.
Become uncomfortable. Why does it... Because the culture of dirtiness that we were... My mother even told me that in their time, a woman is not even supposed to discuss it or even act as if she's enjoying it. They say if you give too much layers to it, that your husband can like go off, you're like, what's wrong with you? You're just supposed to quietly take whatever they give it. Why does this dirtiness continue to still, when it comes to sexual...
Because it's still perpetuated. And I say to a lot of people, so for every person standing in front of you, and even you yourself, when you look at the mirror, look at yourself in the mirror, however you behave today sexually is determined by a lot of things. You're coming from somewhere, your history, your experiences, your beliefs. And so even when we talk about sexuality, right, a lot of people think we're saying sex, but sex is a part of sexuality. Your sexuality encompasses a whole lot more than just sex. So your beliefs, your attitudes, your thinking, the things that you were taught, your learnings, your experiences, all of those things come together to inform that person that is standing in front of you today. And so if we see a lot of people who still shy away from sex, it's because where they're coming from, their beliefs, their experiences, the teachings and everything has taught them this is not something that you discuss. This is a private matter. It doesn't matter whether you're struggling with it or not. You're just supposed to figure it out on your own. It's not something you discuss in public. It's not something you say. It's not something you are vocal about, right? And that is why till today, people are very uncomfortable discussing sex. But I have to say, things are getting better, right? I remember when I started to do this work well over a decade ago, and I would post things on social media. People would be like, who is this woman? She's so bold. What's going on? Is your husband in Nigeria? And he is, by the way, right? And so people would be very, very shocked by the things that I would post, the things that I was very vocal about. But fast forward to today, over a decade later, people can now actually start having those conversations gradually. And so the work that is being done in the sexual space is also helping to gradually transform, not just by myself, but by other people who are also in the space, is now gradually starting to transform people's outlook, people's thought processes, and people's openness. I can't say that we're there yet. I mean, we still have a long journey, right? But gradually,
we have entered the bus.
We're starting to make progress.
People talk about, I mean, what should we be looking at when we're talking about sexual health, and then this year's theme is sexual justice? Because whether we like it or not, people have a tendency to reduce sexual health to reproductive health, contraception, disease prevention, and all of that. So I know it's much more than that. We have begun to layer it and talk about it. But what does this even mean? I mean, looking at this year's theme.
And so sexual health encompasses more than just reproductive rights and family planning and things like that. It's also about how we see sex. It's also about, do we see sex from a positive standpoint? Do we accept that our sexuality is positive, right? How do we also, it's also about consent. It's also about intimacy. It's also about pleasure. It's also about expressiveness. All of those things come together to form what we mean when we say sexual health. So it's not limited to just reproductive rights or family planning or things like that. And so it's a lot more than that. It's
this sexual justice thing, what is...
what does that mean?
I wanted that.
What does it mean?
What does it mean?
Sexual justice.
So if you look at the context of our culture, for instance, there are some cultural practices that are still in place today. For instance, female genital mutilation is still something that happens in cultures, right? Our culture is supposed to, we are our culture. Our culture is our tradition. It's our way of life. It's who we are as a people. And I do think that there's some fantastic aspects of our culture. So as Africans, we have a very communal culture. We're community people as Africans. It's a beautiful thing. With westernization, we're starting to lose some of these things, right? In Africa as well, we have a culture of respect, which is a great thing. So our culture is who we are. It defines us as a people. But when cultural practices can start to harm us, human rights, sexual justice has to take a front seat. So what happens when a child or a woman experiences circumcision, female genital mutilation? It's wrong, because there's a lot of, physical trauma, mental trauma, and all of sexual trauma as well, and all of those things. If culture starts to harm who we are as human beings, rather than protect us, and convey who we are as a people, if culture starts to harm us, then justice, sexual justice, human rights has to take a front seat.
You talked about FGM, and I couldn't help but remember how, a 2-month-old baby died in Uganda after, being circumcised, and how, even the country in itself, is trying to, some people in parliament are trying to overturn a law against FGM in this time. It's really, really sad. You also talked about how it is a taboo in some places, or, speaking about it in itself is a taboo. And there's a lot of misinformation and myths about, sexual health everywhere, passed down through culture, religion, peers, and even now on social media. Yeah. So we would love to actually hear what some of the most damaging myths you've actually come across, about sexual health are, particularly for women, because Lolo did talk about how Amara told her about, suppressing yourself.
Absolutely. So that's a very good one. Women, so if you present as a woman who likes sex, people tend to see you as a loose.
Oh, God. Okay, so that's something you need to layer on. Because when I know Catherine is, that's just more African, she's Pan-African.
Yeah, Pan-African, yeah.
And I'm beginning to see that from exposure to other cultures. Yeah. I'm seeing that women across Africa have more sexual freedom than here in Nigeria. From research and looking at it, I never knew such a possibility existed. So when you said something like this, honestly, I cannot lie to you. If you say to people that, oh, I like to engage in the art of this, even in marriage, people still look at you like,
oh my God, she's so dirty.
She's so dirty. It's
or even if you initiate it, even in marriage, it's a problem. It's still a problem.
Absolutely. For some couples, not every couple. So there are situations where, and so I've worked with lots and lots of couples over the years, and I've seen couples where the man is saying, I really want my wife to initiate, but then it's the wife that is saying, I've not been taught that women do this, right? And this is not, when I do it, I feel, again, remember what I said about where we're coming from, our beliefs, our learnings. What she's learned is that women are not supposed to initiate. And so
there's this guilt.
Yes, absolutely. And then I've worked with other couples, and I've seen couples where the man has said to me, he said, when my wife initiates sex, I feel emasculated. I don't want it. I don't want it to happen. I feel like she's taking my place as the man.
Wow.
Again, where is he coming from? And so I think that even when couples are about to get married, one of the things that doesn't happen is people think that sex will work itself out when they get married, but that's not necessarily true. Because even before you start to engage in it, whether or not you're doing it prior to marriage, right? Even before you start to engage with it, people need to engage. Even before you start to engage in it, people need to start to engage with it, with conversations. Where are you coming from? What are your beliefs about sex? What are your expectations? People don't necessarily have these conversations, and they feel when we get there, we will cross it. And you know what? In Nigeria, we are also a very religious country, right?
Absolutely.
And whether we like it or not, religion has an impact on our sexuality. And so, when we look at the religious angle, abstinence is propagated, right? Don't have sex in marriage. All of those things are propagated in the religious space as well. Now, people don't have sex in marriage because the Bible says so, or whatever it is the religion is. And then they get into marriage and then they're confused, right? But even if, and it's okay to not have it, but should you inform yourself about it? Should you understand it? Should you start to understand who you are as a sexual person, what your expectations? Should you engage in conversations around it? Yes. So I've had people say, oh, we don't even want to go there yet because our bodies will be doing
Well, in religion, we're made to believe that, sexual health or whatever is meant for procreation and not for enjoyment. But we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we will definitely continue this very interesting conversation. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us on Jasiri. Now, when we talk about sexual health and sexual justice and reproductive rights, we're talking about power. Who gets to decide what happens to a person's body? From bodily autonomy to reproductive choice to the dangers of restricting access in a country already struggling with maternal deaths. These are not abstract debates. Now, they're urgent, personal, and often life or death issues. Well, our guest is Olawunmi Esan. She's a psychologist and sex therapist. Olawunmi, now let's talk about, bodily autonomy. It means the right to make decisions about your own body, yet so many people still do not have that freedom. We're talking about it just, while we were on a break. But why is this still such a hard pill for society to swallow, especially in Africa?
So society as a whole still has not accepted. So, for instance, in the case of women, society as a whole still has not, in Nigeria, accepted that women have autonomy over their bodies when it comes to sex, right? And even if you look at reproductive rights and reproductive health, when women even go to clinics or go to attend to their reproductive health, they're given just a side of the picture, not the entirety of the picture, right? But this is something that needs to be on the table. How do women start to understand? How do people start to understand their sexuality in total? How can people be comfortable enough to go to clinics and get accurate information that is right, without shame or without being shamed, right? These things are absolutely important as well. Bodily autonomy as well is absolutely important. It's okay for a woman to say no, right? I saw something recently where there was a case of sexual abuse. Yeah. Men abused a boy, right? And then comments were like, why would he abuse a boy? Was a woman not there?
Hey.
That makes it wrong.
That was horrible,
right?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, can you imagine that? Women are now the ones. So the women are the alternatives. Women are the ones that should. So even the mindset that a woman's body belongs to a man. Imagine in cases of sexual abuse cases, rape and all of those things, a woman comes out and says, I was raped and all of that. What do you hear most of the time? What were you wearing?
What were you wearing? What were you wearing?
Why is that the question? Why is what she wears the reason she was sexually abused or she was raped? Not control on the other parts. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So even the mindset that the woman's body is for the man, even when you go to public places like the market, do you see how women are groped by men, boys? That mentality is there. It's there. It's pervasive in our society that the woman's body is not our own. And as a society, as a people, this is something that we need to start changing. And I saw something that one of the Lagos State government agencies tweeted recently, and I was very happy about it because they said, sexual consent is important even in marriage. The fact that you are married does not, the fact that you are married does not automatically mean consent. She still has to consent. And I was very happy about that. And that tells us that gradually, as a people, we are moving as well.
Anyway, information is what we thrive in this particular generation that we're in. And I want to believe that this is the backbone of sexual justice. Because if you don't have information that is accurate, evidence-based, uncensored knowledge about sexuality and health, people are left vulnerable. Misinformation pervades everywhere. Stigma and, of course, preventable harm. Yeah. Because if you don't get information, and here is the controversy. In many communities, sex education is another problem. Yeah. It's either watered down censored, or completely absent, often in the name of protecting morals. And I think that this leaves young people unprepared, confused, and even more at risk. Why is access to accurate, evidence-based information about sex and health treated as a controversy?
In these times.
In these times, because people make a big issue out of it. I saw something on social media that I don't know how true. It's just a story that, oh, this young girl in secondary school was being punished and they whipped out something and maybe touched her hand. And they discovered that she has family birth control. Oh my God. The story was like the whole school stopped, called her parents and everything. And what can you say to us as Africans? Because part of these things is still misinformation, inaccurate information, and sexual education in particular.
Yes, absolutely. So here's what I would say. We are a society, but family is the smallest unit of society. And as much as, I mean, it's garbage in, garbage out. If the family is not doing what it should, the society at large will also be impacted. So as much as we want to move forward as a people, a lot of things will also start from the family unit, right? And so if you have a family unit where the mother and father are uncomfortable about sex themselves, they're having sex, but they don't discuss it, they're uncomfortable. How do you expect them to teach their children about sex?
But you don't. Children see. There are people who live in one bedroom. They're having sex right in front of the children, and you're not saying anything. And you're expecting the children don't know.
And it's absolutely true. But if these conversations are not had, we will still run into problems. Because children are learning, but they are not being directed, right? So they just speak one and two together, and they just run with it. And you see, the thing is, when we talk about sexuality education for children, most people think we are saying, tell your children about sex as an intercourse. That's not the entirety of it, right? Educating them about their bodies, body safety, boundaries, all of those things is part of sexuality education, right? I have an 8-year-old son, and sometimes he just comes and then he starts to peck my cheek, and I'm like, stop. If he doesn't stop, I tell him boundaries. I need you to understand boundaries. If somebody says you should stop something, it doesn't matter if they are so cute. You need to stop it. He's 8. He's not an adult, but I'm already telling him. I talk to him about his body as well, right? Don't let people touch you in certain places and all of that. We have to understand that it's not about, this is why people are scared of it, because they themselves are not comfortable with sex. So because they think sexuality education is about sex, they shut down everything. But these children need to know. When my daughter was 6, she went to a salon to make her hair. So she goes to the salon to make her hair, and I leave her there, they bring her back home and stuff like that. And then she came to me one day and she said, Mommy, I'm not going to the salon again. I said, why? She said, because they play content that is inappropriate for children. She was 6. Because I had taught her at home that this content is not appropriate for you, and this is why. As you grow older, you will start to see more content that is appropriate for you, but at this age, this is not. And then so she would check age ratings. Right? And then she would see something and she said, I'm not going there again. I had to call them and say, my daughter is not coming again. Because of her, they had to change things. But I was not there. Sexuality education for children empowers them because we will not always be there.
But when you talk about it empowering them, when we come back from this break, we'll talk about how, people actually seem to believe it teaches them immorality as well. We'll be back.
All right, welcome back to Jasiri on the home stretch, and we're all about sexual justice today. And when it comes to that, access to information is power. We've already established that on this table with our guest. But too often, that power is denied, censored in schools, silenced in homes, replaced with myths on the internet without accurate evidence-based knowledge about their bodies, health. So people are left unprepared, at risk, and vulnerable. So allow me, we're rounding up, but, Darshan launched a question, which you had already talked about, how people were uncomfortable with overexposing children to information about sex, because you talk about sexual health, everybody's thinking you're talking about sex, the act, sex. So I'm going to ask, you've worked with couples. Have you seen a couple or couples naive or ignorant about this whole idea, or uncomfortable as well, about talking to their children about sexual awareness, their bodies, because my mother spoke to me about sex when I was 21. And she was very
and I was
looking
to them.
if you understand, that was early, and she was looking at, she was very uncomfortable, and I kept looking at her because I knew she was uncomfortable. But 21, wow, you understand? You don't enter street, you have learned, do you understand? But she was talking, and I kept looking at her because I knew she was uncomfortable. And I was wondering, as I was staring at her, why are you this uncomfortable? Just talk to me about how this works. And she said, you know, even when it comes to that, you must not allow yourself. There must be a resistance. In my mind, I'm resistant to where? I know that some parents are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Now, in the line of your work, have you experienced that, and how bad is that?
Oh, so I can't tell you how many couples and people, parents are uncomfortable with talking to their children about sex. So many. And you know, the interesting thing, it stems from their own discomfort. You know, why are you uncomfortable about it? For a lot of people, they think it exposes the children to immorality and all of that. Now, we're not saying overexpose. And like I said before, we have to understand that there's a difference between sexuality education and sex itself. It is part of it at an age-appropriate time, right? But where it starts from is not even about sex. How do you teach them about their bodies and all of those things? But parents are lots of parents are extremely uncomfortable. But one of the things I've also discovered in the course of our work, and the more they start to open up sexually, personally for themselves, one of the things they start to then ask me is, how can I make sure that my child does not experience what I experienced? How can I make sure that my child also has an openness about sex that I have waited, about sexuality that I have waited all of these years to be able to achieve, right? And so when they start to move in that positive direction themselves, they start to then open up to say, okay, how can I also help my children in the right way as well? Because the truth is, if you don't tell those children, they will be educated one way or the other. And it's going to be out of your control. So now you don't even know what they know. You don't know whether the information they have is accurate. But whether you like it or not, they know it. And just to share a funny story, a couple of weeks ago, my kids, I don't know why, they were still awake. My husband and I were, you know, in the bedroom and all of that. And there were sounds. There were sounds. And then shortly after, I heard the kids knock at the door and all of that. So then the next day, my daughter came to me and said, Mommy, I heard sounds coming from your room. What was going on?
You didn't expect that, did you?
Going on?
I didn't expect that. She was going to ask me
Are you okay?
No, she said, Mommy, were you guys trying to make a baby, doing that thing they do when they want to make a baby again? I'm like, okay, first of all, that's a private conversation between myself and Daddy. But I want to ask you, because I was also curious, I want to ask you, how are you able to translate those sounds to sex? How do you know that? Because we talk about sex openly, but of course, not at the point where I'm saying, oh, Moni, she's not my client, right? And she's not an adult. And so she said, and this is where I'm going. She said, a lot of my friends talk about it now, and I know that. She said, a lot of my friends talk about it. And even when I was in year 5, some of the people in my class were saying to me that, we're talking about it and saying that, if you hear certain sounds, then you know that the people are doing this. So children are informed.
How old are
She's 11 now. Then she was, so in year 5, she was 9.
So you can imagine
So
that.
imagine
So
they
children are
discuss these
informed.
things. So if you don't tell them right.
That's why they will find the information. If you're not there to guide the children,
them.
then they
Absolutely.
get lost at sea.
Absolutely. And then I then had to tell her, so you know what, yes, that was what was happening, but that's between me and Daddy. And I want you to also understand that it's a good thing, because when that happens between parents, it means that their marriage it helps their marriage, you know, it helps them in their marriage. But if it's not even happening at all, there might be a problem in that marriage. So it's a good thing that it's happening, but that's a conversation between I and Daddy, and just wanted to, so I had to exactly,
because
right?
she's not
But I
here.
did not yell or any of those things. But the point is, she had that information.
You know, when you talk about, you know, how different would our society look if everyone, regardless of gender, background, religious inclination, had access, to honest, evidence-based sexual education? What do you think the world would be like?
I think the world would be so much better, right? Because our sexuality is an integral part of our humanness, if we don't have to hide it, a lot of negativity thrives in the dark.
Yeah.
If we don't have to hide it, we can be more open about it. People will be more open about their struggles.
Yes.
People will be more open about
Their
perhaps their
experiences
addictions.
even.
People will be more open about their beliefs, their experiences, all of those things. And people would not have to navigate trauma, things like trauma, dysfunction, pain, addiction by themselves in shame. Because again, sexuality for a lot of people in our culture is tied to shame.
Yeah.
Right? And so imagine couples who are experiencing issues, but they can't come out and say because they say, oh, this is a private matter. But they're in that space suffering for years in silence and in shame
all right,
because...
Just quickly before we go, is there a perfect age to tell your kids, you know, about sexual health? To share with them, teach them?
Okay, so just for the purpose of clarity, we're talking about sexuality education, not sex itself,
Yeah,
right?
not sex, not sex.
Okay, so sexuality education should start as soon as you start to help your child identify their body parts. So these are my eyes, these are my hands, these are my legs, this is your vulva, this is your penis, and all of that. It should start from then.
Wow.
Yes, because if I can call my hand a hand, why should I call my genitals something different?
All right, so now how about the age, appropriate age for talking to a child about sex?
Okay, so as a child starts to get to puberty, by the time, for instance, a girl starts to get her period or is about to, you start to talk to her about her period, that conversation can start to come in to say, okay, now that your body is changing, you are growing and all of those things, one of the things that happens is that the egg is released and all of that. So when you start having those conversations about the egg being released and how if you are grown, that helps you be, it facilitates pregnancy and helps you make a baby. Some children will ask, how do you make a baby? So around that point is a good inroad to start easing into conversations around that. So if a child then asks, oh, how do you make a baby? Then you know that, okay, we're starting to ease into that conversation around that.
Thank you so much.
Well, I wish this discussion didn't have to end, but we've learned one thing today. When it comes to sexual health and sexual justice, we know that information is not a luxury, it is a lifeline. So denying people accurate evidence-based knowledge does not protect them. It exposes them to risk, stigma, and even harm. So if we truly believe in justice, dignity, and health for all, then access to honest information must be non-negotiable because ignorance has never saved anyone, but the truth can definitely. All right, so thank you so much, Olawunmi Esan, for being our guest today. And we'll hope to see you back here again.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye
much.
for now.